Welcome to Second Chapter, Unforgettable Career Stories Podcast. I'm Karen Sharp-Price, and I'm so glad you're here. Back in 2020, I launched a podcast called SharpHR Career Corner. The goal was simple, to create a library of real conversations with people in all kinds of roles across industries sharing their career stories. Over 3 years, in 53 episodes, those stories became a reminder that there's no real single path to a meaningful career. Now I'm back with a new mini-series, Second Chapter. This is for those of you who love the original podcast and for those just finding us for the first time. Since COVID, I've noticed something powerful. So many people have paused, reflected, and realized that life is just too short to stay stuck in work that doesn't fit anymore. Second Chapter is about those moments, the pivots, the risks, the brave decisions to choose work that actually feels meaningful. These are real stories from real people who dared to change direction and start their next chapter. I hope you enjoy. Today's guest is Devon Powers, a nurse practitioner who decided to take a bold step outside of healthcare to bring a dream to life. In late 2024, she opened BestCellar Book Bar in Clarence, New York, a unique space that blends a bookstore, wine bar, and coffee shop into one cozy community gathering place. Devon partnered with her dad, Pete, a retired attorney who shares her love of books. Bestseller is more than a place to buy a book. It's a space where people can slow down, connect, attend book clubs, meet authors, and enjoy the simple pleasure of reading with a glass of wine or coffee. Today, we're going to talk about the journey behind that dream, what it took to make it real, and what happens when someone decides it's time to turn the page and start a new chapter. Devon, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I know you know I really love your place. I really think that this is appropriate to share with everybody your dream and how you made it happen while still being a nurse practitioner.
Yeah.
So that is the big story here because
Yeah.
you actually do two things at one time. So you have a successful and meaningful career as a nurse practitioner.
Yes.
What was the moment when the idea of opening a bookstore bar, which is very different than
hmm
most of our bookstores around town, shifted from that's an interesting idea to I think I'm actually going to do this?
Yeah. I think for me, there wasn't a lot of time. Like I kind of just made the decision real quick. So
Really?
yes. So when it comes to actually like formulating the idea of a bookstore bar, I had this idea like 10 years ago. When I was in my early to mid 20s, I just thought it would be really nice to have an environment that was community based where you could buy a book, read, and then maybe have a glass of wine or a beer and or coffee mocktails. And I would go and read in this, in the community in our various cafes, which is nice, but also it can be very space limiting, and just uncomfortable and not necessarily conducive to having a conversation with maybe somebody you don't know. So I just thought like, hey, that would be a really neat idea for somebody to do in Buffalo. So I just wanted somebody else to do it. And at that point, it was a thing, but it wasn't super popular. So I just kind of put it in the back of my head, thought, hey, one day that would be really cool if that happened. Cut to 10 years later, I'm was 10 years into my nurse practitioning practice, and I was very successful being an acute nurse practitioner at one of the local hospitals for general surgery, and did that for 8 years. It was my second job going into NP, and I poured my heart and soul into it. I loved what I did. My surgeons respected me, the nurses respected me, and we all had a very good working relationship. And with that, I also was able to teach newer nurses, surgical residents, um, kind of in that career field. And I just always thought this is what I was going to do. This is where I was going to, kind of retire from. But through healthcare and how we know things have changed post COVID, working through that, and then having to kind of see the outcomes of comorbidities, and decision making post COVID was definitely hard. And I got to a point where all of a sudden, very rapidly, I started having a lot of anxiety. It was something that I definitely had dealt with at one point in my life, but I was very confident in my ability to do my job, that it was a very different feeling, uncertainty, feeling that I can't provide enough care to everybody that I'm responsible for, having to make sure I'm keeping my eye on everything and just, trying to do what I can, but also kind of stay afloat. And that feeling was definitely in the last year of my, of working in that position. I had been in therapy for a different thing. And kind of throughout discussions, I always felt like I can't leave them. I do such a good job. They won't know what to do without me, kind of a feeling. And through that, I had a very sudden anxiety attack. And I actually had to be out of work for 3 months because my anxiety had gotten so bad. I was kind of a shell of the person that I was. Even my mom, she would say like she didn't know who I was. It just was not me. And I think that is I think something like that happens to people in various points of their life, whether it's burnout, whether it's mental just strain on a situation. I was fortunate enough to get 3 months away from the position to realize this isn't serving me anymore. I don't need to pour everything into this one job for the rest of my life. Like, it is okay to step away and they'll be able to recoup, without me.
Yeah.
So it was kind of in that time that I was like 10 years in, early 30s. Am I really going to be an NP until I retire? I think I was an NP at 24. So I started that career very early. So I was kind of having almost, I don't want to say a midlife crisis, but like a change in pathway kind of decision of, I don't think I can keep this up at this pace for the rest of my life. So what can I do that will make me happy, that will make the community happy? And kind of rather quickly, I changed back to that idea that I once had and was like, I want to do it. I want to do it. I'm going to do it. Called up my dad. He was all for it. He was also looking for something to do post retirement. And in a weekend, I had my business plan written up.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I was very determined to have like a different pathway. So my decision, I didn't really hem and haw on it. I was just like, this is what I'm doing. I believe in it. I knew that it would be something that could be very good for Buffalo, and just for myself and the local community. And I just kind of ran with the idea and I didn't look back. Yeah. And I think within a month we had the space. So once we signed a lease, that's kind of when I was like, all right, it's real. We're going to just kind of keep pushing forward.
Wow. How did you have the vision of what it was going to look like inside from the very beginning? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I did. Or at least I had ideas of what I wanted. So we had taken some time and at least went to two other bookstore bars that were the closest to us is upstate of New York City in the Kingston area. So we decided to take like a weekend to just go and see, what's that about? Because it's not an original idea. It's definitely out there in larger cities, but everybody has a little bit of a spin on what that looks like. So the two we went down to see, one was located in Kingston, so it's very much local community. There's not a Barnes and Noble. There's not like a big coffee conglomerate down there. It's very much local community. So they were really good at being a cafe that's also a bookstore with popular books that turns into a bar at night. And I liked that idea, but being in a small community, they had small space. And they definitely did well with what they had. And then the next one that we went to was very much bar, with some books. And I always wanted it to be bookstore and then the bar is secondary. So when I was thinking about it, the thing that I definitely wanted was space, and space that potentially could have a meeting area where you could gather privately or semi-privately and have your book clubs. So I had that idea very early on, and where we're located now, at Main and Gunville, it was empty. It was two suites together, empty space,
Oh,
but I was able to go in and visualize that the one alcove that we have, if we just put up a wall that's not very tall, could definitely be the private, semi-private space. And then I always have been fond of decorating my own home. I definitely know what style I like. So I wanted this aspect of elegance but cozy. So that's where even color schemes down to the light wood, but the dark walls, the lighting, all of that is something that I planned and I
wow.
put into the store. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I kind of interior decorated almost all of it, outside of what our contractors did with the bar. So I definitely like, I even had a couple of high school girls who are coming in for graphic design. They met with me this
Uh-huh.
after a couple days ago, and they were definitely picking up on things that I had done, angulars versus using circular lighting, even things like that are things that I planned and wanted to make sure kind of came through, but wouldn't necessarily know.
Wow. Um, I have to say that when you walk in, it feels like, and for some people, they won't remember the show, but Cheers. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows you. And
Yeah.
I love your mom because your mom is always there and she always knows my name.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just makes it feel like, I don't know, like family. It really does when you
Well,
walk in.
and that's what I want too, because I think the base of that is that it's mostly a family run bar, right? So I'm usually there all the time. My mom's in the kitchen, my dad's there to help. But then the girls that I do have that work for me over the last year and a half have definitely become family.
Yeah.
So I wanted when you walked in, such a big space, but I wanted it to feel cozy.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through pretty well. And where
Yeah.
there's these different nooks that you can kind of hang out, but it's still a ton of space for everybody. And that's a nice thing. You walk in, I've gotten to know a lot of people
Hmm.
over the year and a half. I know everybody's order, I know what they like. And people are, I think that just what makes it's nice to come back is, you're going to come back, you're going to see a familiar face. You're going to feel welcomed. And that's what I wanted in that type of environment. I wanted to know my customers.
Yeah, and it definitely gives that vibe. It also, with the couches in the front, with
Hmm.
high chairs on the side, with tables, with some area in the back, there's really a space for anybody's needs in
Hmm.
that area. So depending on if you want to sit at the bar or, sit on the couch or do work, like you have a place wherever you want to
Hmm.
be. And it's just yeah, it just gives that vibe that's really nice. And it's interesting because when I'm there, um I'll see women that come in and you can just tell they're probably like moms that are just like had a really not, a great day.
Hmm.
And then they'll grab a glass of wine and they'll just go sit and read a book and it'll just be kind of like decompress.
Yes.
You can just you just feel it, you can see it. So like with all of that, with being a nurse practitioner and the skills that you had, acquired over the last 10 years with that, and then going to become a business owner, what skills from being a nurse practitioner do you think was unexpectedly helped you as a business owner?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just communication.
Mhm.
I know how to communicate with, you know, anybody that comes up and talks to me. And I feel like I have a deep understanding of each person, even in a short period of time. I can kind of assess, you know, what do they need, what they need from me, things like that. So I think communication definitely has translated well from one to the next, making people feel comfortable. As far as getting into business, I had no business skills. I had no idea if you needed any business background when you started this. And I think it's just learning that, delegation, trust, communication, and just kind of quick decision making that I'm used to was very helpful. I think if I lingered on any one thought process, there's that allows for a lot of seed of doubt to come through. So I just kind of always had belief in myself and the overall idea that made all the other decision makings very easy. And when you get into a field like business, you just don't know sometimes where to turn or who to trust. But I feel like if you put out a very open line of communication of this is where I'm at, this is what I need help with, this is what I don't know, then that allows for people to be able to answer and help. I think if you come in already having an idea of this is what I want to do and just kind of not take anybody else's ideas, then people aren't going to want to help you through that process. So, but on the opposite side, I think what's also allowed me to be successful is knowing that I can say no. And I think that that's you don't want to say no in certain situations, but when you have a good idea and a good business plan, people want to change that. And it's just kind of having trust that what's best and the timing that's best, and just saying, hey, I understand, that idea. I think it's a good idea, but I'm not doing that right now. And here's why. And I think being an NP has allowed me that confidence to be able to say no to people who are even older or maybe have more experience, because I just don't feel like it's right at this time.
Yeah, and trusting yourself, in as a nurse practitioner, you've had to probably make decisions really quickly and
Mm-hmm.
and be confident about that. And that translate very much as a business owner. Sometimes you have to make a decision and you have to do it pretty
Mm-hmm.
quickly. So I can see the similarities. So starting a business is exciting. I'm sure it can also be scary at times. Was there a moment during the process where you thought, what did I just get myself into?
Yes, I think that was very, I think when I had to make an act, like I think when it was where I had to sign a lease, right? You're signing a lease, you have the space, and now you're in it for 5 years. I was definitely had the paper in my hand being like, I can turn back right now, but if I sign this, there's no turning back.
Yeah.
So I did have a little bit of cold feet at that time. But I just kind of was like, you need to do this, you need to try. And you you don't just put pen to paper, and I just kind of went with it. And that's kind of what I did with the space too. We had two suites that we took over. So I could have either have split that space and just made it very small
Mhm.
and hope that it would be what it is. But I was just looking at it and thought the whole space would be perfect,
Mhm.
and just kind of like a go big or go home mentality. Like if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to make the change, if I'm going to make the jump, I might as well just do it and wholeheartedly take over the space and just kind of see what happens.
Yeah. Well, it's worked. So
Yeah.
you made a good
Yeah.
decision on that one. So you partnered with
Yes.
your dad on this venture. How has working together shaped the experience for both of you?
Yeah, it's definitely over the last year and a half we've had our changes. So when we started with this, my dad's a lawyer, so he had knowledge that I didn't have, and kind of vice versa. So it was a nice kind of coming into the experience with our own kind of ways of viewing things. I'm very more creative, harsh, rash decision making, trusting myself. My dad definitely takes a step back, thinks about things a lot more. And so we've definitely have our own strengths, which are kind of opposite one another, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, since since starting, my dad actually came out of retirement and has gone back into law full force. So it was through, I think, when we started, we had this idea, we had the space, we were waiting for everything to be built out, and we both left our jobs in June, July of 2024. Very naively, you never know how slow the build out process is going to be sometimes. So we were kind of thought we were going to be open a lot earlier than we were. And we were just kind of, it gave us time to be able to hash out things like employees, pay, that stuff. But once that stuff comes together and you're kind of ready to like open a store, there's a lot of waiting time sometimes.
Mm.
And then even when the store is open, you know, they don't really know you're there. So you gotta have traction. So I think in that process, my dad realized that he wants to be a part of the business. He wants to be there, but he doesn't need to be there all the time.
Mm.
And he himself found that he just really loves law. And even coming out of retirement for almost a year, he missed it.
Oh.
And it just so happened that his former employees needed him to do something. He went back temporary, then part-time, and then full-time. But what that allowed my mom to do is my mom, who is a nurse who
Oh.
worked with me, 4 years. She retired in December. So it was kind of a swap. But me and my mom were very much used to working with each other because I was the nurse practitioner and she would have patients that we would share as a nurse.
Oh, wow.
So we're used to running responses and codes together. So we know how to communicate in tough decisions or just chaotic environment sometimes.
Yeah.
We get busy at the store. We're both in the kitchen. Nowhere near the same amount of stress at all, which is nice because, we used to have to be making decisions that would save somebody's life. Now it's
Yeah.
just in the kitchen getting food out. But the same kind of adrenaline rush applies. And I know that we can get good product out in a timely manner and we don't even have to communicate with one another. We already used to knowing what the other is thinking and kind of being a step ahead of one another. So that's also translated into the business very well. And my mom gets very much deserved time to not, be retired, and she's enjoying that. And it gives her time to be with the grandchildren and also help me out in the business. So that's also very nice.
Yeah, that it's a perfect partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So starting something new often looks, exciting from the outside, but the journey is usually much more complex.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back through the process of creating bestseller, what part of the journey do you think changed you the most as a person?
Hmm. I think that's a good question. I think really the start of it changed me most. The
Hmm.
realization that I can change what I'm doing, and I don't have to be in a position of constant anxiety, and there is something different out there. You just kind of have to reach out to it.
Mhm.
That really was the biggest change because I really did think that I was going to be full-time NP. That's what I'm good at. That's what people need from me. And just realizing that I can't give that full time. That for me was the biggest personality change, is and being okay with that decision, because for a long time I wasn't okay with it. I kind of mourned the job a little bit, and the leaving the patients and acuity in that. But knowing that, the common question I get now is, how stressful is this? You're running a business, you're working 80 hours a week, you're still a nurse practitioner part time. Like, how are you not stressed? And no, I'm not. I was far more stressed working 40 hours a week in a stressful environment, and coming home and not really able to detox, because you don't leave those decisions at the door. I always came back home and, you know did I make the right decision? Did I do the right thing? Could I have done something different? And those thoughts kind of fester in your mind. Some people are really good in the medical field of kind of saying, kind of leaving it and just saying, I did the best I could. For
Yeah.
me, especially at the end, I kind of would let those ideas fester.
Mm.
And, I had support in being able to go to my mom who understands those thought processes.
Mhm.
But it just was something that I didn't, it would feed on me. So I am far less stressed now with the hours that I'm working, knowing that I go to work at my NP job. I still am confident knowing what I'm doing. I'm able to teach patients still. And then I go to the bar and I just see people's faces light up when they walk in for the first time, and just knowing that, they like being there. We can have communications. I know what they're going through, and catching up with them, that makes me happy.
Yeah. Boy, it really resonates. There are so many people out there right now that the stress level in their jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and across the board, especially since COVID, the two industries that seem to really got shook up the most was teachers and nurses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I actually knew somebody who was on the news side of things who had to gather all that information and then try to figure out how to get it out to people.
Mm-hmm.
And they also got burnt out. And I didn't even think I didn't really think much of newscasters having to give that information. But when they had to do it day in and day out, when the nurses had to deal with these patients day in and day out dying, it
Mm-hmm.
just, how can it not take a toll on you?
Right. Definitely.
Like there's just no way that it couldn't touch you in some way, shape, or form. And so I think since COVID, the anxiety level, the stress level of people in all different types of jobs, but even more specifically teachers and nurses, um, when they hear your story, that there is hope, that
Mm-hmm.
you have dreams, and you may have had dreams earlier on, and then you took a different path. Well, those still can be your dreams and you can still
Mm-hmm.
make them happen. And you just have to sort of push yourself out of that anxiety for a little bit to give yourself the confidence that yes, you can do this. You can make that happen. I mean,
Yeah.
how did you make that happen from that moment when you were full of anxiety and probably doubt and all of that to taking that step to push yourself to say, no, I am actually going to do this. How did you do that in your mind?
I I don't know if it's the best answer, but desperation.
Okay, hey.
Yeah. I was desperate to just find something different. And for me, being able to have been out of my job for a couple months and kind of sit and reflect on, hey, it's okay that I'm not there. Like, people are going to get taken care of. It really was untraining my brain.
Mm,
Um, and being in therapy, and I have nothing but good things to say about therapy, because it really was actually my therapist that gave me not a push, but just kind of put everything into perspective for me. So while I was out, I was going to her, and she said, look for something else. Maybe this job just isn't it. You've done it. It's okay to put it aside. It's okay to look for something different. And in our communication, I was just saying, hey, this is my idea. This is what I have. And she said something that resonated with me, that said, if you wait too long, opening the store with your dad, could not be a reality.
mhm.
So wouldn't you want to have done it while you had time than to wait and for it to not transpire? And it was through that I was like, you know what, you're right. Like, we are on, we're here for a very short time. Our relationships with our parents change, and
Mhm.
as they get older, you just never know what any point of period of time is going to look like. So why not do it now? Why
Yeah.
why wait? And that point, in discussing with that, it was the perfect time that I, you know, comfortable in my life. I don't have kids. I don't plan on having children. So for me, that was a very easy transition. I have a very supportive husband, and it just kind of all aligned where I need to make a change, whether it's a new job or pushing forward. I want to do this, and I want to do this soon. And so I kind of ran with that and was like, this is what I'm going to do. And then I had to make the decision to leave my job after that, because there's no way I could work 40 hours and then be able to open a store. So my general surgeons that I worked for were very kind in putting together a clinical way of going about my job, where if they've never had nurse practitioners in the office either. So it was a learning opportunity for all of us, but one that has worked out because it's also often the load of them as well. So it kind of worked out all around, where I only have to work there 20 hours a week, but I know that I'm helping and then moving to the bar.
Huh. Yeah, and life is too short.
Yeah.
You got to jump at the chances that you can. What do you
Mhm.
think surprised you the most about the response from Western New York community since you opened?
I think just how it's made everybody happy and how everybody's very appreciative of the fact that we're there. That and just people coming back. I have people that come back every week, a couple times a month, and it's just nice to see that everybody is excited to come in
Mhm.
and excited to be there. And everybody asks me all the time, how are you doing? Are you guys doing okay? Like, what do you need? So it's just very nice knowing that where we are in Clarence, there's also a little kind of built-in community there too, of we're kind of in an area that's a little bit off from transit. We're also halfway between Akron and Batavia.
Yeah.
So we will get people that come in from Batavia very routinely to see us and host party for us. And, we've had people from East Aurora and Hamburg, Pennsylvania, Toronto that have kind of come out to experience what we're trying to do. So it's nice just knowing that we kind of have a little bit of a range, and people are wanting to travel to be a part of it.
Sometimes I'll say to somebody, "Oh, let's meet there," thinking that they have never been there, so it'd be nice to bring them in, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I've been there before." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Really? How?" So yeah, we're just getting around.
it is. It does take time though. That's also what's been a learning curve is you do a lot of promo. We've even before we opened, we were on the news, we were in the newspaper, all of these things. And it's just so funny how we've been open a year and a half, and I'll still have somebody from a mile down the road come in, just be like, I had no idea you guys were here. And you should advertise more, is usually the response I get. We have.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how some things go viral and other things don't. I don't know what it is what's that secret sauce that you have to do, but it's funny, but it's nice because it just shows you can still reach more people, that you.
Right. And I think the thing that's unique about us too is when they were asking what kind of demographic range are you looking for, and I was like, really, you know, teens 18 to 90. I really think that we can reach a whole span, and we have our the older generations kind of come in for lunch, maybe some evening type, you know, wine or coffee, snacks, desserts. But then we also have, a pretty big younger generation following too. So it's also been very challenging trying to figure out how do we reach all of this whole span in different ways. So we've got the social media aspect, right?
Yeah.
But then I've also had to like just make flyers and post them around the community to be able to kind of reach, the older, over 65 crowd.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, really anybody from any age, and you've got the high school right across the street. I mean, what a great
Mhm.
place for them to stop by. And the other thing that you're doing that really hasn't been talked about enough is that you're also promoting books
Mhm.
because books have slowly, gone to Audible and people don't always hold books anymore. And but there is a huge population of people that only like to hold a book. They and that really makes a difference. We have to save it.
Yes, I think the book buying community has definitely waxed and waned in different trends over the years. But I think, and especially to Buffalo, there's a ton of bookstores, and we are all doing pretty well, and we are all in support of one another. So we communicate with actual books and Kenmore and Alice Ever After in Buffalo, and we all have these things that we do with one another to kind of really be supportive.
Hmm.
And I found that people do like audibles, they like to, but they also, if they've listened to something that they really love, they want it in paper form. So
Mm-hmm.
some people will come and see the book on the shelf that they love and buy it for that reason. But I also think, and a lot of it could be TikTok trends of this is how many books I'm reading so far this year, where people will have a paper copy book that they're reading at the same time that they're listening to their audible book while they're doing chores, and vice versa. So there's still a ton of the community that will grab a book and read.
Great.
And even if they don't, they come to our book clubs and they support in other ways.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And then you just stop by and have a drink at the bar. You
yeah,
you don't even have to be a book lover. So,
yeah,
yeah, I think that there's a lot of things, and you have other events during the week. I saw something, I think, candle making.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
have a whole bunch of
Tonight's
different
trivia
things.
night,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
trivia night's a big night. So we
Is
have
it?
trivia, candle making next week. Oh yeah, yeah. We shut the store down because we get maximum capacity every trivia night. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah,
So I mean, really, there is something for everybody. So last question. Second chapter is about people who take brave steps towards something new, which you have definitely have done. What would you say to someone who might be listening to this podcast who has a dream but is sort of on the fence or afraid to start? What would you tell them?
I would tell them if they have an idea and they have a dream to really kind of explore that. What is that idea, and kind of formulate it into what they want from that. And for me, I just say go for it. If you have a belief that something will work, whether it's a change in job, whether it's a new hobby, whether it's a change in career path, um, make sure that you've investigated it, you have a plan. But once it's there, if you really want to go for it, I if I didn't just kind of put all my eggs in one basket and just shoot for the idea that I believed in, then I wouldn't be sitting here. I don't know where I would be. I could be in another, full-time NP position, and whether or not I'd be happy, I don't know. But I know that in doing this idea, I've definitely become happier, less stressed, and just know that I'm changing the community is a very fulfilling feeling.
And your nurse practitioner um, work, they really shifted and accommodated, right? Because you're still with the
Yeah,
same group. So even though you thought that that was something that probably wasn't going to work out and how could you leave,
yeah,
they made it work
yeah,
for you.
yeah. And sometimes it's just being okay to ask.
Yeah.
The how we work together is a little different, because where I was employed through the hospital system but worked for them specifically.
Hmm.
But now I work for that group. So when I and the nice thing is that I know that my coworkers, my surgeons, they're also going through the same thing. So
Hmm.
it's just kind of reaching out and saying, "Hey, I'm struggling." We had a lot of communication when I was out of, "Hey, this is where I've been, and this is how I kind of came out of it, and this is my experience." So it's knowing that I wasn't the only person that feels this way, that they were very supportive and kind of, helping me move to a different decision. And they were okay, that I had to step away from the hospital work. But when I said, I would love to still be with you, how can we make this work?
Yeah.
They definitely took it and ran and, made me a position with them. And sometimes it's just being vulnerable enough to ask for help. And, even if something doesn't come from it, you can at least say, I tried, and,
Yeah.
we just look at a different avenue.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, I think communication is key, and whatever your worst thought is, it doesn't necessarily have to come true. And
Mhm.
if you let other people around you know how you're thinking or feeling, I think you're going to find a lot of people that will fall right behind you because they feel the same way. At some point
Yeah.
in your life, they have felt the same way. So Devon, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I love hearing about people who are just willing to take a chance on something meaningful and create spaces that bring people together. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bestseller Book Bar is a wonderful example of what can happen when passion, creativity, and a little courage come together. For those listening, if you're ever in Clarence, New York, be sure to stop by Bestseller Book Bar and experience it for yourself. And if today's conversation sparks something in you, maybe a dream you've had about thinking about or a new chapter that you've been considering, remember that every journey begins with a single step. For those listening, if you like these types of stories, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and thank you for spending time with us today. Let's be kind out there. It starts with you and me. Have a great day.